Hello, I'm David Katzmeyer from CNET. This is Logitech's Harmony Touch Universal Remote Control. This is a first for Logitech Harmony, the well-known brand of universal remote controls, because it does involve a touch screen. This remote, about a third of it right in the middle, it's a 2.4-inch color touch screen, so that allows some extra customization and some pretty cool tricks. On the flip side, it doesn't have as many buttons as traditional Harmony universal remote controls, so in all, I really didn't like it quite as much, despite being a lot more expensive and a lot more seemingly advanced because of that touch screen. We'll start with the design on this remote. It's actually a really cool look. If you hold it in your hand, it's a little bit smaller than the traditional larger wands from Harmony. It's also got a very nice feel. My finger kind of slid right into the back here. It's got kind of a curved back. When you set it on the table, it's got a nice sexy slide right from the back to the front. So all things considered, it's one of the most attractive remotes I've seen. The front does tend to attract a few extra fingerprints, but not much more so than a standard smartphone or tablet. That's really the look that Logitech was going for here with this remote. It does look a little bit more like a smartphone or a tablet than traditional remotes, and again, that's because of this touch screen. The screen itself is pretty responsive. When you get into the settings, you can actually play around and move the buttons, so that's one of the nicer things. In fact, the remote can move the buttons without having to connect it to a computer, so that's one of the nice new things about this remote. Like all traditional Harmony remotes, it's designed to control your entire system via activities. You can scroll through the activities here. You see there's Watch TV and a bunch of other different activities. Clicking on one of those will send a series of codes to the television and your entertainment center to engage whatever devices you have, and of course set the remote itself to control all those different devices seamlessly. One of the other cool options the touchscreen gives you is the ability to have favorite channels programmed right in there, so you can put up to 50 of these channels with icons and easy access instead of scrolling through your DVR's guide. Another thing the screen gives you is a numeric keypad. You might have noticed there's no keys on the actual remote, so you have to go to this virtual keypad to type in channel numbers and the like. On the downside, that lack of buttons on this remote does mean that you don't get quite as easy access to a lot of the best known functions, and I really found that to be a deal breaker. Another step-up feature of the Logitech Touch is the built-in rechargeable battery. You can't remove the battery if something goes wrong, so you might have to make a service call to Logitech. On the other hand, this cradle does provide a nice home base for the remote control, so you might not have to spend as much time looking for it around the living room. One of the worst ergonomic decisions Logitech made with this remote was to put the transport controls, which are play, pause, fast forward, all those at the very top, so they're really difficult to reach. And I use those controls all the time, for example, when skipping commercials on a DVR. Speaking of skipping commercials, this remote does not have a dedicated button for forward and reverse skip, for 30-second skip, for example, on a TiVo. Of course, you can program those using a soft key, but it's really nice to be able to have a hard key for those things, especially if you do a lot as commercial skipping and your DVR does offer 30-second skip. Real big downside, and of course, traditional Logitech remotes do have that button. The bottom set of buttons is a little bit more difficult to reach than I like to see as well. You can actually have to stretch to get down to the guide and the DVR buttons. The cursor control is a little easier to access, but again, not quite as nice as I'd seen on some remotes where they do place that really central cursor directly below the thumb. One of the cool things the touchscreen does allow is gestures, so you can program up to 5 different gestures, swiping in the 4 cardinal directions and also a tap. And that does allow a little bit closer to a smartphone style interface, but on the flip side, the screen itself isn't as responsive as most smartphones, and things like scrolling can go awry, and especially because there's a strip here along the bottom where you can sometimes accidentally activate the devices or the help function. Like all Harmony remotes, the Touch does require you to connect a PC to do all of the heavy lifting in terms of programming. You can also learn commands from your other remotes if they aren't in Harmony's database. That whole process went relatively seamlessly, and again, it's one of the main features of Harmony remotes. Of course, it is available on a lot cheaper remotes like the 650, and that is the Touch's main downfall, is the 650 is available for about a fifth of the price of this really expensive remote. It's about $250 list, and that means you can buy a Harmony 650 for about $65. That's a huge difference in price, and for my money, I'd rather spend it on a tablet, which is about the same price as this remote. That's a quick look at the Logitech Harmony Touch. I'm David Katzmeyer with CNET.